Hi, my name is Nathan Sizemore, and this is my series, Conversation with Nathan. It's to help promote long form conversation amongst individuals. I hope you enjoy.
Whoa. Yeah. It's picking up good enough. Okay, so we had kind of talked about. Oh, first, I guess we'll introduce you. My name is Nathan. And this is Cassie. And we used to work together at a hospital. Anyways, I guess the topic we kind of discovered was, or we kind of discussed, the topic that we kind of discussed covering, I said I titled it For Every Time That We Sacrifice the Truth. And I thought that it would be interesting to hear different people's points on, um, everyone sacrifices the truth from time to time, and rather than just those involved directly in that sacrifice being affected by the repercussions, sometimes everyone and everything can be. So, sacrificing the truth can mean many different things to many different people. And I was just kind of wondering if you had any insight on what sacrificing the truth may mean to others, or if you had any information or stories that you might want to share on what it means to you, or how it's affected you.
Well, when you brought up the topic, you did explain it a little bit, but you kept it, subject to interpretation.
Right, for sure, for
So,
sure. Yeah, and even the way that I'm stating that you might interpret the topic, I may be even interpreting it completely different than you, which is completely fine. Because, for example, the way that I really think about it is through addiction. I've been clean for 6 years now, and I think about how I used to sacrifice the truth daily to people around me, and I wish that I'd told them that they were pieces and that they were doing and that let me rewind because I don't know if I can say. I'll have to check. So I wish that I'd
see
told.
it on YouTube.
Yeah, I won't be.
On your channel.
It won't be on YouTube. It'll be on TikTok actually. TikTok is where it'll be first. It might end up on YouTube if I guess it just depends. I don't know. It depends on if it gets picked up or whatever. But I used to be. I wish I had told people around me how they were, being pieces of crap and really, really laid into them. But you do it out of comfort, and I was sacrificing so I could continue to use with these people and we could pull each other down together. So to me it means a lot of different things, but that's one of the big things that come to mind.
Yeah, once something becomes familiar, it becomes comfortable through familiarity, whether it's actually objectively comfortable or not.
Yeah.
So I can understand that, you know, I haven't had, personally, I haven't had addiction issues as an adult
Mm-hmm.
to, you know, I would say to strongly impacting drugs. I mean, I've, dabbled here and there as an adult, but
Right.
as a teenager, I had a lot of issues with, and I mean, I can take some personal accountability for it
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of it was my choice, even though I wasn't legally an adult.
Right. Yeah.
But I was prescribed all of these different mood medicines, for rightfully diagnosed depression and anxiety and all of this.
Mm-hmm.
And it did seem like the doctors that I saw would, and this is part of why I don't trust medical doctors.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to trust them anymore. But they would give me this medicine as kind of almost like a brush off, like a band-aid maneuver.
Mm-hmm.
And they would say things like, well, try this, and if this doesn't work, we'll try a different one, and if that doesn't work, we'll try a different one.
Yeah.
And then, oh, you're having side effects from this one? Well, if you're having side effects, we'll give you a new pill for the side effects, as
Yeah.
opposed to, adjusting the dosage or changing the medicine. So, I mean, I was in a mode of thinking which I think is relatable to any mode of addictive thinking.
Yeah. I think I
That
think you're probably right. A lot of people they'll trust the doctors, so they'll just keep going back. You know.
right,
And if you trust them, you're trusting them to fix it. So why change? Because you think, well, if this one fails, then the next one will fix it.
right. You just yeah, put your life in their hands, basically. Put your mind in their
Yeah,
hands.
but to go back to topic, do you think that that is sacrificing the truth, or do you think that that is because you were fooled internally?
most communication
Hmm.
has been lack of understanding myself.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
so I feel like in a lot of cases, the first place that people sacrifice the truth is within themselves.
That is most definitely
You
the
know,
first place. In my opinion as well, that's most definitely the first place. Yeah.
and then once that's like the foundation.
Yeah.
You know, so once you've done that, there are so many degrees, because you could either be lying to yourself, or you could just be avoiding a painful reality.
Right.
You know, so there's an outright lie, which I don't believe that most people are, I don't believe that most people are tuned up to outright lie,
Yeah.
you know, especially to other people, in a malicious way.
Hmm.
I think that when you're in denial, or when you refuse to accept something that would be too painful to accept, then that just leaks out,
Yeah.
you know, in ways that affect other people around you, but it starts within you.
Yeah. It's difficult to see it as probably one of my strongest traits now is I know inside who I am and outside who I am. And that's why I'm doing something like this. That's why I feel it's so important for me to do something like this, because I feel like people that have been through or have insight, or actually I think everyone has a story to share, and if they search deep enough, they can find places within themselves that they're going to be able to relate to these topics that we put on display and that we're discussing. And back on topic, what we're discussing now, searching within yourself, sacrificing the truth, or maybe not even searching within yourself, just simply sacrificing the truth every time you sacrifice the truth. I think a lot of people have dealt with that. Now, what we were discussing just then about how, like that in-depth, almost, it's almost microscopic to see it, but where that first sacrifice may have began, and on and on and on, and how it turned kind of like a tumbleweed. It starts off small and grows and grows and grows and grows. And yeah, and you can be just because you say inside, that you say if there's someone out there, this is just for example, that has claimed something terrible, that someone did something terrible to them, and this person didn't do something terrible to them, but they were a child when they claimed it, and that snowballed their entire life. You know, there are people that are in situations like that out there every day, that they may have said, oh, my cousin did this to me when I was 10 and they were 15, and their cousin ended up serving the repercussions, but for the rest of their life it could have torn apart their family. And this could have been something that was a lie, an outright lie, and they.
I can think of a very specific, something that I heard directly from a person who was affected by this, a very similar instance,
Yeah, yeah. It now when sorry, I'm going to jump back to the very beginning of our conversation, and how we were talking about how sacrificing the truth might have meant something different, or our analyzing the question might have meant something different between the two of us. What were you on to there?
Well, I thought about,
I'm just wondering where your head went when we first talked about it the other day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's actually hard for me to talk about. It's harder for me to talk about how I interpret something.
Yeah.
Specifically, personally, because I think when I hear about like a vague general subject that I'm interested in,
Right.
I think my mind goes around and around to pick up every possible interpretation of that subject. So it almost becomes impersonal, where I can relate to almost any interpretation that I can imagine.
Yeah.
In some small way, at least a small way. So I think of myself in ways that I've avoided avoided confrontation,
Okay.
and I would call that a sacrifice of the truth.
I think so too. I think so too. And this is something that I was thinking about actually. I kind of got into thinking about this the other day when, okay, so when people sacrifice the truth in that manner, my question was, is it selfless or selfish? You know? So that was kind of where I'd led my thoughts into where my thoughts had been led into is it selfless or is it selfish? And my dog wants
That's
to.
a good question. Oh, there she is.
Yeah, yeah. She
There
needs
she is.
she needs
She
attention.
looks so happy.
She is happy.
She's gonna pick your nose for you.
Yeah, she will. So, but yeah, I was thinking about how sometimes it's selfish, you know, because you don't want to tell someone because you want situations to remain the same, or you know, but then other times it's selfless um, because they might need you to they might need you to withhold the truth. You know, someone might need you.
Right, you might be trying to gauge their wants. You know, you might be in your mind. You might be even catering to them
Yeah,
by sacrificing a truth that would make them really uncomfortable,
yeah,
and that really isn't. It really isn't fair to anybody because you can't. And I've had to train myself this. I've been seeing a therapist who I had trouble finding a good one, you know,
hmm,
because there were trust issues and there were all kinds of, you know, reasons why I couldn't open up to a therapist. But I have recently found a good one who I can communicate better with and express more personal feelings to.
yeah,
And she kind of helps me figure out. She helps me realize that if you believe that you're doing someone a favor and it's making you personally uncomfortable, and on top of that, you're catering to unspoken needs, and they didn't, you know, most of the time when you hide the truth in favor of someone else, they didn't straight up tell you to never to talk about this,
right,
or they didn't tell you directly, you know, I don't want to hear any more about this particular subject. I don't want to have this awkward, painful conversation. They didn't outright tell you that, you know, so they haven't even set a boundary yet.
yeah, yeah,
So if you do believe that keeping a secret or avoiding something that should rightfully be addressed, if you believe that that's doing someone else a favor when there is no spoken boundary, it's probably better for everybody to just let it out.
yeah.
Just
I totally agree with you. I think that every time we withhold the truth, we bring people or mankind or humanity one step closer to a bad place. And I think this happens in the masses. You know, you don't really think about the small. You don't really think about the small things, but the small things begin to add up, and then they become a community thing, and then the community things begin to add up, and then they become a state thing, and then the state things start to add up, and then they become a country thing. And I think that kind of I think withholding the truth is almost like poison sometimes. I think it can be like poison sometimes. Although I do believe that it can help you, I do believe that it can stall discomfort for some period of time. I believe that eventually that discomfort, the longer it's withheld, the more it maximizes.
it compounds.
Yes, yeah, yeah,
It's like the comparison to instant gratification,
right,
as
right.
opposed to the long-term vision of you know, patience in the long run amounting to a better outcome in the long run.
Yes,
You
yeah.
know, it's like eating the marshmallow experiment. Do you know about that?
No, no. What is that? What is the marshmallow
Okay,
experiment?
so it's where I mean, it's kind of a far-fetched comparison, but I think it works.
Wait, is this the one where you asked them, do you want one marshmallow today? Or
Yeah. Do you want one marshmallow right now,
uh
or do you want to wait and have 2 marshmallows in 30 minutes?
yeah.
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
And but
I think it's the same thing. I think it's really the same thing, but it's inverted. It's like, do you want to be punished now, or do you want to be punished in 30 minutes and it be worse?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, you're okay.
I got a call. I declined it.
It's okay. It's okay. So yeah, but I think it's kind of the same thing though, just reverse. Do you want to be punished now, or do you want to deal with the discomfort now? Do you want to deal with the information that you falsified now and tell the truth now, or do you want to deal with it later? But the problem with the situation is, right, yeah, that's right. That is the option, because people don't think about the future. They don't. With this situation, there's not a two marshmallow scenario. There's only the one. The 2 marshmallow scenario is, yeah, it's hypothetical, because say for the example that I stated earlier, someone says that their cousin did something bad or their uncle did something bad, and they outlive their uncle or their cousin, and no one ever finds out. No one ever finds out, and it does affect you inside. And they would think back as an adult. Once they got older, they would think back as an adult. They would think about these things and think about, oh, my relationship with Aunt Tanya could have been better, or my relationship with my brother Robbie could have been better if I hadn't have withheld this. Oh my gosh, I can't. What could have been. I think that the people that even don't serve the repercussions of those type of actions may end up serving them internally, and in a twisted, tormented nature,
Right. In an existential way.
Right. Yeah.
As opposed to just an airing it out and allowing people to think what they will about the genuine,
right.
your true interpretation of reality. Some people might judge you negatively over your personal truth. And somebody might not share your personal truth. They might debate it. They might even deny, and that is really painful. When someone denies your reality,
right?
When you try your best, to present your reality to them, and they deny it.
Now, when you say your reality, and the other person denies it, you still mean that there is only one person that's right and one person that's wrong, right?
Well, I mean, it's all a matter of perspective, I guess. Which one person's perspective, like there's that expression that says there are 3 sides to a story. It's my version, your version, and the truth.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So one perspective is a limited perspective by nature, by human nature. One person can't possibly wrap their mind around every factor of any situation.
Yeah, yeah.
So there could be I believe that there are certain cases where there could be like an undisputable truth.
Right.
That is either acknowledged or denied. And that comes down to a very technical issue. Like that's an undisputable truth wouldn't have anything to do with intent, like human intent.
Yeah.
Because that can't be read accurately, even by the person whose intention it belongs to. Probably so.
Right. Yeah.
But it is hard to express your perceived version of the truth, your perception of reality, to someone that you hope can at least acknowledge it in a way that would make you feel somewhat validated.
So in this kind of scenario, there could potentially be a reason to not tell the truth.
Right, and I think that has a lot of relation to why a lot of adults still hide from reality,
Mhm.
live in denial, and maybe lie, but maybe just avoidance. I
But
think
in the
a
end,
lot of it stems.
do you think that not telling the truth in a scenario such as this, whereas the truth might be damaging, do you think long term that it rots as well?
There are a lot of internal struggles associated with um, not sharing the truth if you don't have another opportunity. Like, um, say you don't get another opportunity to express the truth when maybe you lied to someone or maybe you didn't tell them exactly how you feel. If you don't get another chance, then that is going to rot inside of you. It's going to torment you.
Yeah.
But also, if you express what you believe is the truth, and then you're either rejected or, say, gaslighting,
Yeah.
where someone who wants to hang on to your, it's kind of a, oh, what is that term for a codependence?
Oh, okay.
When
Okay.
someone wants to keep you in a relationship where you kind of rely on their validation.
Gotcha.
And
Gotcha. Those are dangerous.
they
Those are dangerous
yeah,
relationships.
they are.
Yeah.
I believe that every child is a codependent of its parents. So that's kind of where it starts,
Yeah.
for everybody. I think that forms a mentally, depending on um, the approach that your parents
Right.
offer to their child, depending on their emotional maturity, um, the way they interpret their child's displays of emotion, and the way they respond, it can build a mentally healthy adult, or it could build a mentally unhealthy adult
Yeah. Yeah.
who still has relationship issues that are probably the foundation of those began with being, oh,
Withholding the
it's hard
truth.
for me to find the right words.
I
What
said.
was that?
I said withholding the truth.
Yeah, right. Withholding the truth in favor of your original closest relationships,
Yeah.
which were probably parents, or it could also be siblings.
Hmm.
I was an only child, so I'm not familiar with sibling relationships. I do feel like, though, that having peers in the
Hmm.
house to reflect, back and forth with and to communicate with would have made me a um, more open to different types of relationships
Yeah.
as an
Yeah.
adult.
But it also, I had two brothers and a younger sister, and I mean, there's a lot of strange stuff that comes with that too. There's a lot of strange stuff that
Right.
comes with that too. Like for example, me and my brother fought a lot. Like we fought a lot. So I had these predefined notions about how people would treat me depending on how my two older brothers treated me. You know, and I'm not saying that they treated me poorly because they definitely didn't. But we fought. And we teased each other and we made fun of one another and there was just
So
a
you
lot.
were the youngest brother.
Yeah, I was the youngest for sure. But
Oh, yes.
that's why I grew up so mean. That's why I grew up so mean.
Yeah,
I'm
you kind of
sure of
get
it.
complex there.
I'm
Yeah, you
sure of
might
it.
have, you might have thought the toughest guy in the room wins.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that impression.
Right, right. Yeah. No,
which is it could be pretty rough for the people around you.
yeah, yeah, it can make it very rough, and a lot of times, like we were talking about withholding the truth. Inside, I knew so many times that I was insecure, and inside, I knew that I wasn't strong enough to make something happen, and inside, I knew that I wasn't the strongest man in the room, but I could make everyone else lie on the outside too. So I would get in a room full of people, and not to mention that I was using, most of the time during these times. and I would be in a room full of people that I could have made friends with, but instead I wanted to intimidate them because intimidating them felt better to me. So,
It gave you a sense of validation.
yeah, kind of. It's very strange. I haven't really delved into all that stuff. But it doesn't disturb me. At this point in my life because I kind of hit this marker, I hit this spot, and I just started new, and I was like, this is who I am now, and this is who I'm going to be, and I'm going to treat everybody the best I can, and I'm going to treat myself the best I can, and if I'm not, then I'll call myself out on it and move on. But anyways, to go back to what I was talking about, I would intimidate other people into lying to themselves on the outside too. Well, I don't want to fight him. I don't want to fight him. When in reality, they may have inside really wanted to fight me, but on the outside they didn't want to deal with what they thought they might have to deal with. So it was kind of getting people to.
I don't want to lose a fight to him.
he's
want to fight him, but
yeah,
I don't want to lose that
he's
fight.
a little goobery looking guy. I don't want to lose a fight to this guy. Yeah.
I don't want to go to jail over this.
No, and that was another thing too. And a lot of times in those kinds of situations, I wasn't scared. I wasn't scared to cause trouble, like real trouble, and get in real trouble. And a lot of people are scared to get in real trouble, and because they don't see that things are temporary. But when you've had my dog is looking over my shoulder, so when
I saw him for a second.
yeah.
Can I put something with me?
Yeah, she's laying up there, right there. Yeah. But yeah. Anyways, I think that we've kind of hit this conversation pretty good. I think we've hit this topic pretty heavy. I don't know if there's anything else that you can think of that you could cover, or any other ideas that you've got in your head as far as sacrificing the truth and where.
Oh man, I could talk about this subject all day. My phone would run out of batteries.
It is an easy topic to cover because I think that everyone experiences a sacrifice of the truth. I think people experience it daily, actually.
Yeah, me too. I think that I think that it is an epidemic, and I think that culturally, like you were saying, the ramifications of the personal level expand to community and state and national.
Yeah, and social media is the biggest sacrifice of the truth I've ever seen. Period. If you look at you look at people's profiles and they all look like they look like they don't ever have to sacrifice anything. They just have joy and peace and happiness. But in reality,
isn't that frustrating? To envy an imaginary person.
Yeah, I mean, do you think that we're to the point that we? But I think when I look at social media, I don't think of those people. I don't think of. Well, I don't know. I do look at some people's profiles and I'm like, well, I'm glad they're happy, and then I'll find out that they've actually been in prison for 2 years.
Right. Or that they've been struggling with suicidal thoughts. Or
right.
Like
yeah.
that.
Yeah. Or somebody looks.
Find that out by hearsay.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, a juxtaposition, you see all this evidence of perfection, joy and perfection. It doesn't match up. It seems like.
Now, do you think that's selfish or selfless? Social media sacrifice of the truth. Because I don't know.
That's a good question.
It's just kind of a weird thing we do.
You would think that it would be selfish to present a happier, better version of a person that you wish you were. You would think that would be selfish. But on the other hand, you might want people who care about you, who love you, where their first impression of how you're doing is through that social media. You might not want them to know about the dark side.
Right.
So you might believe that you're doing them a favor by hiding the negatives from them.
Which is really sad.
Right.
Like if a daughter, like a daughter moves off and goes to college and gets a new boyfriend, and the new boyfriend is very abusive and beating her. So maybe she'll stay home for long periods, but post pictures of herself with the bruises covered in makeup. You know, she'll cover them with makeup and post pictures. So, you know, she'll help delete the
The
evidence.
longer she tries to hide it, the
Yeah.
worse it gets. You know,
But
the
that
worse
goes to a much deeper level, I think, of an individual lying to themselves about the situation that they're in, you know,
right.
and also lying to themselves about what they deserve and how they can be loved. I think that that's a much, but it's still a sacrifice of the
so many
truth.
forms of abuse.
Right,
So
right.
there's physical, and then there's emotional, which you can't really put your finger on emotional abuse. You know, you can't. There's no physical evidence, so it's all a matter of it's all a matter of confession. You know, emotional abuse.
Yeah.
There's not as much. I've noticed that there's not as much support as people claim there would be in cases where there's no hard evidence of abuse, especially if the abuser is liked, is charming, you know.
Right. Yes. Yes.
A lot of the times, there's a lot of victim blaming going on in among people who would claim that they were advocates for, you know, who would claim to be compassionate people, who would claim to be, you know, who would claim to be woke, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Which I hate that word. I hate that word so much.
I don't like it either. I don't like it either.
But yeah, on the other hand, situations like the kind you mentioned are also happening, where someone is falsely accused and their reputations and their lives are forever ruined.
Yeah.
Based on false accusations. Like that's also true. So it's hard to find. You know, there's no set standard for judgment.
Right.
You know, every case is so personal and so unique. You know, and I think that a lot of the times people fall into standards of judgment.
Yeah.
Where they think that it's universally applicable because of a certain incident where there was a twist, maybe, and that sticks with them. You know, they think they just automatically apply that to every similar situation.
Yeah.
And people just, I think a lot of it has to do with the way humans are, like, especially in groups. They want to simplify everything.
Yes. Yeah.
And you can't really blame them because, you know, there are a lot of cases where if someone sat down and really thought about it, they would cry, or they would get so angry, or they would you know, freak out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
instead of doing that, the hard part, they just apply these, you know, they just kind of fill in the blanks and fill in the pieces that aren't fair. You know,
Yeah.
that aren't true.
And I think that's another form also of sacrificing the truth, because what happens is you don't know what the truth is, so you sacrifice knowing it, you sacrifice finding it, you sacrifice searching for it for something that you call the truth, you know.
Something that satisfies you.
Right. So if from my journey to point A to point B, I see another point, but I don't know what to call it because it's between point A and B, and all I know to do is call them A and B, I'll just say, well, I saw another point that's A.5, you know. But I don't really know what that point is because I just know it's there. I haven't touched it myself. I haven't seen it myself. I just know it's there, and I caught some type of form of it between A and B, and I know it exists, but I'm not going to investigate it because it didn't cause any trouble, and from point A to point B is still the same outcome. So we're just going to call it this, or we're going to just ignore its existence completely. You know, and
it could be right. It could be that A to 8.5 was a nice little valley, and then 8.5 to B is a mountain.
Right.
So
Yeah.
instead of climbing that mountain to get all the way to B.
Yeah. So sometimes I think sometimes we'll submit our complexities to falsified truths as well. Sometimes submitting complexities to falsified truths or just, I guess, to guesses. I mean, it's in this kind of comes into when you think about science and how right now, which this might be kind of way out there, but I was actually thinking about this the other day, how everything is based on, Newtonian science, like, um, you know, the that you can't travel faster than the speed of light, and the way gravity works, and it's all based on these Newtonian physics, like the mathematics in Newtonian physics, but they're outdated. They only work down to a certain level, and we just agree to only utilize them down to a certain level, and then it's like microscopic, a whole different set of physics that they use. But I feel
I
like,
see what you're saying.
yeah,
Where every every solution to a mathematical problem that is based on the consistencies of Earth and Earth's atmosphere.
yeah, those physics, everything's kind of locked into a box.
Range.
Yeah.
Right. And you have to acknowledge the variable range
Mm-hmm.
that where you might want to your solution to be more specific than that. But what are you going to base that on? How are you going to come up with a new formula?
Right. And you can't come up with a new formula if the original, you can't come up with you can't, if your original formula is flawed and it's a lie, you can't build anything off of it. And I think that's kind of what people do when they sacrifice the truth at an early age, or inside themselves at an earlier level. They're building a foundation of truth that well, it isn't. And
that's a good metaphor.
In the long run, it's, it will fall apart. That they'll either fail or be tortured by it internally. I mean, on the outside, they may look like a great person that has succeeded, but inside, you never really know what's going on with someone, or what they've lost, or who they've lost, and what for or why,
Their personal struggle. Yeah, it is. I used to believe when I was, a kid.
Mm-hmm.
I used to believe that it was possible to become happy all the time, while I was more often than not extremely sad and confused and frustrated.
Mm.
And I believed that there was this opposite way to be. And then when I realized that wasn't the case, because every kid has kind of black and white thinking,
Yeah.
And I realized that wasn't the case, that I was wrong about that, which led me to believe that people who seemed happy most of the time were fooling people around them or fooling themselves, like denying a sadness or a negative emotion and something negative that wasn't just in me, it was in everyone.
And the importance of what you said there is they seemed happier all the time.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was just an external impression that was a glance of an impression. I didn't know them personally. I didn't know what their... I didn't know what was going on inside of their head,
Mm-hmm.
And it is scary to reveal that, like to show someone that negative side that's not pure joy and love and happiness. It is scary to reveal that, because like even though it's universally relatable. So I was telling my therapist one day, I told her that there was a personal instance where there was an interview for a job that I really, really wanted. And the reason that I wanted this job was so that I could work with someone who I was looking forward to working with.
Mm-hmm.
And it just didn't work out, not because of a dynamic between us,
right?
But because of the dynamic of the nature of the workplace itself was very toxic,
mm-hmm.
and I was the first one to leave, and then they eventually left. And I was at the interview, um, and this person the person that I was looking forward to working with again was there. And when it came down to it, I couldn't admit that the reason that I was interested in this job was to work with them again, because I had a feeling that I would want to work with them for a very long time, like we had a good dynamic.
Right.
And it was so disappointing. The outcome of the first round was so disappointing. And, when they asked me why I was interested in the job, that person was right there. They were sitting right there.
Yeah.
And they looked at me and I looked at them, and I thought, I can't say it. I can't, because any words would have just been a substitute kind of for, like, I love you and I miss you.
Yeah,
and
right.
I wish that we could have one more chance.
Yeah.
Any way around that, I would have had to find some way around that, some explanation that would have amounted to meaning the same thing.
Yeah.
And in that moment, I couldn't do it, and it got really awkward. The first part of the interview went so well, and it got really awkward, and they did not hire me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And every other interview before that and since then, I've aced the interview.
Right.
I just choked in that moment, and it was very sad.
Do you think in that moment? Do you think in that moment of sacrificing the truth and externally displaying the truth that you harmed your life, or do you think that your life is better now because of it? Or if you could have been aware and more in control, do you think you'd be in a better place now? Or hindsight's 20/20, So
it is.
Yeah.
It's a mystery how it would have gone.
Well, that's good to know. That's good to know, right?
Yeah. Right. I mean, I can imagine. I can use my imagination to think that I would be in a much better place, or that I would have had to, give up on round two. That
Right.
I would have had to,
Or you could be in hell and torment right now. You could be in hell and torment.
Right.
You could be in an awful situation.
I had a lot of high hopes,
Yeah.
and the denial of a second chance.
Mm-hmm.
It hurt, but it might have hurt even worse to get that second chance, and then for the situation to not be what I had hoped it would be, to see that firsthand.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
It might have hurt even worse.
Yeah.
And it's hard to say. And I was telling my therapist about it, and I told her that I couldn't tell the truth in that moment. I mean, I guess I could have, but I got so anxious and afraid that it became physiological symptoms of anxiety.
Wow.
To where it was like, it's like sand in your throat.
Okay.
It's like you just can't physically say it.
Yes.
And so in that moment, I couldn't mentally or physically say what I wanted to say, what I meant.
Right.
And I told my therapist, and she asked me how it felt to be rejected in that moment. And it hurt, but it actually would have hurt even worse if I had successfully told my truth.
Yes.
If I had successfully expressed that in the best way I could, and then to still be rejected.
Well, sometimes I think we're in situations like that so that we can learn how to control ourselves better, in the future, and it kind of helps us get a grip on who we are, and I think, like I said, hindsight's 20/20, and you look back, and a lot of people will look back at things like that and they'll say, man, I missed out. But what they don't really realize is maybe they didn't. Maybe their life would have went to hell if they had done what they wanted to do. You know what I mean? That when you look back and you think when you look back and you think you've made a mistake, sometimes that mistake is the only thing that saved you, and it's really hard to tell.
and you'll never know. It is
Right.
frustrating to never, like, because it's all, you know, it all becomes theoretical when it's a what if.
Yes.
It all
Yeah.
becomes, it's just locked in your imagination,
But is it worth pondering on? Is it even worth thinking about? Is it even worth pondering on? Just in a general sense. I mean, for me personally, it's not. I'm not the type of person that does, and it doesn't do me any good to do so.
Ruminating. It's my specialty.
Oh, gotcha. See, I'm not much of. I'm a now forward kind of guy. Like I'm a now forward. I like to tell stories about the past because I think that we can grow from stories about the past. But I don't ever look back and say, "Oh man, I wish this had happened," because, well, I don't know. I just don't. It's not in my character really.
I can see why not. Because it's very uncomfortable to do that.
Hmm.
But in some cases, thinking back on some situation where, some situation of failure,
Mhm.
a situation of what represents failure in your mind, that could be helpful in growth.
Right.
Just as helpful as the situation itself was, because I've talked to a lot of people and I've seen a lot of people. They'll make a mistake, or they'll do the wrong thing on purpose, or they'll make a mistake,
Hmm.
and they will only acknowledge they'll only show regret or remorse if they're confronted directly about it.
Yes.
And in that case, they'll say, "Oh, I didn't mean to," or "Oh, I'm sorry," but it doesn't really mean anything because they haven't learned anything.
Right.
They haven't, and it really does make you wonder, like, how much regret and remorse is useful up to a point, and then how much becomes useless and unnecessarily painful.
Yes.
I do think there's a balance where no remorse, no regret, you're going to keep making the same mistakes over and over and over again.
Right. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it could be that the mistake itself, you might have been numb.
Well, I think people there that's another, back to the sacrificing the truth, the topic at hand. I think people are sacrificing the honest to God truth that they've hurt someone or that they're hurt inside.
Right, and that's actually a good sign in a way, because it shows that they have a conscience.
Yes.
Where their will is not to hurt someone. Their will is not, because it would hurt themselves to acknowledge that they've hurt someone.
Right. Yeah.
And there could be other people who truly have malicious intent, and they like to hurt people, and they don't want other people realizing that they like to go around hurting people. That is a very rare kind of person.
Yeah.
And I've encountered maybe 2 or 3 of those.
Okay, I hate to cut us off. I'm sorry, but we're hitting the 50-minute mark. So, and I have to cutting floor this at 45 minutes. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, we're good.
But hang on, one quick thing real quick. So, all in all, do we think that sacrifice of the truth is a positive thing or a negative thing? I'm going to say if you had to all in on one, it would be negative.
Ultimately negative, yeah.
Yeah.
Ultimately negative.
Okay, all right, that's all. So, I think we've went into everything pretty good. Thanks, Cassie. Thanks for talking to me today.
You're welcome, Nathan.
All right.
Thanks for the intriguing topic.
Yeah, I'm going to stop the live now.